So I like this event because it resonates quite well with what I am doing now, my new focus, a new project that I'm working on. You are familiar perhaps with some of the earlier books I wrote. Management Theory Rose, the first one, nearly 10 years ago. The second one, How to Change the World, which is free, by the way. You can get it if you just sign up to my newsletter, go here and download the book, and then unsubscribe. Easy. Anyone can do that. And the last one, Managing for Happiness. I hear there are a few copies in this building. You might know more about that pretty soon. Well, I'm not giving that away too much. This talk is about my next project. I like this visual. Can we move this a little bit to the side, because I don't see half of the room over here. Oh, thank you so much. So I like this visual, that I stole from another speaker recently. I am so old that I remember the years over there when I was walking around with my Walkman, where you had 15 songs in your pocket, basically. The music cassettes, but all that is history now. Then CDs became big until 1999, and then CDs started collapsing. What happened in 1999? Does anyone know? Napster, yeah, illegal downloads in general. I remember that time quite well. And then iTunes appeared here, illegal downloads, and then streaming, Spotify, etc. You see how fast things change nowadays. You heard it from the previous speaker as well. It's not only in the music industry, it is all industries are confronted with these changes. And one of the best books published in the last few decades is by Clayton Christensen, where he describes how this usually goes. You have these leaders in an industry, like in the music industry, Universal, Sony, and Warner Music, and when they have sustaining technologies. They make their products better, like the quality of CDs was improved over time. But in the meantime, you have the disruptors who start with actually pretty bad quality, like MP3 downloads in 1999. That was by far not as good quality music as CDs. So the executives didn't understand why would people do that. It's just crap. But these evolve faster, and then at some point they overtake the leaders in the industry. And of course the executives see this in companies, and they fear being disrupted by these young ones, these startups that become scale-ups. So they want to be like startups themselves, but that's so difficult. That is the innovator's dilemma. You have to be executing your current business model and optimize it and exploit it, etc. At the same time, you have to disrupt and come up with the next invention. Otherwise, somebody else is going to do this. You have to explore and revolutionize. And this is like being schizophrenic as an organization. That is so difficult. Now, some try this. Some have like innovation steering committees. Maybe you've seen them before. I was on the Innovation Steering Committee 15 years ago, where we got ideas submitted by the employees through the idea box, and then the Innovation Steering Committee said, what a stupid idea. Another idea, look at this, that makes no sense whatsoever. Well, there it goes. We disregarded all the ideas basically, and then we had no ideas left. And people stopped sending out new ideas because we rejected everything, because everything was ridiculous in our opinion as a steering committee. By the way, this is Innovation Steering Committee 2.0, because they do have sticky notes on the window, as you can see. It's pretty modern. But we can do better. And the problem with these approaches is that the idea is often that they are innovation pipelines. Once an organization commits to a new idea and wants to bring it to the market, then they feel they're stuck with it. They have to bring it forward all the way to the end, like a digestive system. Once it goes in on the inside, on one end, it has to come out on the other, otherwise you have a problem. And that is how they see that, as pipelines. It leads to these kinds of things: bureaucracy, lots of forms being filled in all the time, trying to predict the whole project with budgets and approvals and everything. Big drama. So a lot of bureaucracy in such companies. And we need to do better. We need to look at how the startups and scale-ups nowadays approach these things. And I did a lot of research last year, a lot of companies I visited all across Europe. I've been to Rovio in Finland, and Flixbus in Berlin, and Takeaway in Amsterdam, and TransferWise in Tallinn, and I talked with them. How do you get so big in such a short time? And there's one thing that I noticed all across those startups and scale-ups: nobody has an innovation steering committee. That's what they all agree on. But they do other things, and I would like to lead you through some of the practices that they like using. And what I discovered is all those new products and services, they usually go through a number of steps in a life cycle that are very similar to a human life cycle. We can use it a bit as a metaphor. So the first stage in the life cycle is the infant, the newborn. This is when you have a new idea, a new concept that you want to evolve.
iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Remember that? 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was revolutionary back then. Because we had only 15 songs in our pocket before that. Now we have 1 billion. We said 1,000? Nah. But yeah, 1,000 songs in your pocket, that was the idea, the vision that Steve Jobs had with the iPod, and he wanted to make that reality, and he did. So that's where it often starts, right? Not always, but often it starts with someone has a great idea. This makes total sense. This is what we should be doing, and that's stage one. Trying to come up with fascinating new ideas, and then stage two is the toddler years. When you're a little bit older, you start exploring the world. Now you have to see if people are actually interested in your new idea. And in startup terms, they call that problem-solution fit. Is that actually a problem for which my idea is a solution? And this stage is often skipped, often by technical people who have an amazing new technology that they just want to rush into the market without validating if they're actually solving any problems. Like the whole blockchain cryptocurrency world comes to mind. Lots of projects there that make no sense whatsoever because they're not really solving a problem that people recognize as, yes, it's something that I would like to have. Great technology, but still seeking for a problem-solution fit. And what you can do there is, for example, you can work with lean personas. You can imagine what your customer would look like, the archetypical customer. You can describe that person, give that person a name. Like, I have a startup team, and we have two personas, and they're called Alberto and Patricia. And Alberto is the external Agile consultant, and Patricia is the internal Scrum Master. And there are many Albertos and Patricias in the world, and we can talk about them all the time. Actually, we do. We talk about them so much that it's like they're our friends by now. They don't exist. They are just archetypes. But it turns out that product teams find it really useful to have such an archetypical person in their head who is their user or client. And then for that person, you need to figure out what is it that they're actually trying to get done. What is the problem that they are trying to solve, what is the experience that they want to have. Like, for example, when I get a coffee somewhere in the city, like I had this morning here in Vienna, it is not just about the quality of the coffee that is important for me, it is the experience of being somewhere that is an enjoyable place where I can sit conveniently, where there's working Wi-Fi and everything. That gives me a memorable experience of being in Vienna or any other city. So that is the job to be done for that cafe, not just to offer me a decent cup of coffee. It made me think at some point a few months ago of this pictures like these of the first cars that were ever invented. They look suspiciously like horse carriages without horses, don't you think? There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that I figured out, and that is because in the early 1900s, this was a picture of New York. Horses everywhere. Now imagine that you want to get from A to B requires a horse. And you have to feed the horses and groom the horses and stable the horses and take care of the horses. Imagine the amount of manure in New York City. That was the reason why they built houses like this. They were elevated from street level because there was so much poop in the streets. It was just horrible. It stank. There were rats and flies and everything. They had to get away from that. It was horrible. Environmental problems. You thought we have environmental problems. No, they had environmental problems back in the 1900s. So what they wanted to get rid of was the horses. Please give me a horse carriage without a horse. Please, please. That was a pain. Right? So that was 10 years later they had achieved that. The streets look like this. And the value proposition canvas by Alexander Osterwalder is a typical tool that you can use to analyze this. What are the pains in the jobs to be done of this lean persona that we have, the job that they want to achieve, like moving from A to B without a horse, please. That's so painful. Okay, well they solved that with a car, and then later they figured out, oh, you can do so much more with a car, and then they started changing form and adapting completely to the new technologies. So in this stage, you're probably working with minimal viable products, low fidelity type, they often call them, like sometimes just fake products or just a landing page or something like that, just to test if people would be interested in this kind of new idea. Then, if you validated that yes, there is a market for the idea that they have, then you should have a team, of course, and start working on a product and making it for real. And then they sometimes call that the vision founder fit. You have to collect the people who are into that vision and want to make it happen. This is my team. We have 10 people working on an app and a platform at this time, and this is when you start having all kinds of team practices. Like we have daily cafes every day at 5. We get together because we are a remote team, so we have our daily rhythm of talking with each other. We just had a retrospective last week, which was awesome. Took us 1.5 hours, but amazing insights. All the team stuff usually starts in the third stage. Then the first stage number 4 is validation. This is where you have to see product market fit. Can you make a product that is actually achieving the solution that you have in mind? And is the market willing to pay for that? That is quite an important detail, of course. Well, there are tools for that as well. Some of you might be familiar with the Lean Canvas, for example, by Ash Moria, which is an adaptation of the BIS model canvas. And he says, well, you have to run experiments basically across all these boxes. It is not only about your product or your unique value proposition, but it's also about the key metrics, and also about the costs, and also about the revenue and everything. You have to run tests all the time. Lean experiments, we want those experiments to be lean, as simple as possible, as fast as possible. We want to validate that we're going in the right direction. So for example, if you have a price in mind, you can say, well, we believe that customers are willing to pay 90 euros. That's an assumption. And we're going to test that by directing 100 free users to some paywall and then measuring what the conversion rate is. And if it's less than 20%, we have failed. Our assumption has been disproven. This is very much like a scientific exercise that you're doing. And this is often called minimum viable product of the high fidelity type. There is actually a product in this stage, but very prototypish. By the way, this is the very first picture of one of the very first pictures of the iPod back then. One funny story that I read about Steve Jobs is that he was, of course, the archetypical user. He was the client, basically, so the product team came to him all the time with the new iterations. And he looked at one of those prototypes and said, it's too big. And the product team was like, we cannot make it any smaller. This is as small as we can make it. He said it's too big, like 5 times in a row, and it was still too big, and they were getting desperate. So no, it's still too big. We cannot make it smaller. Let's see, he said. And then he walked with the prototype to an aquarium. He dropped the prototype in the aquarium, And then they saw bubbles appear from the device. And we said, look, there's air in them. Make it smaller. And off they went. True story, I thought. Fascinating. So next time just drop your MVP into the aquarium and see if the air comes out. So that's what you do as a visionary founder, but often you do not have such a visionary founder as Steve Jobs. You actually have to show stuff to the actual clients, the actual lean personas or representatives of them. And then you persevere if the validation is going in the right direction, or you pivot when things make no sense and everything does not work, or sometimes you patch. I think there's a bit of a category in between. Like big changes in the business model, but not a complete replacement of everything you've done. So, suppose things are working. Suppose you have a product that works. Lots of experimentation, lots of trying things out, and you see signs that people are actually starting to use it. What are you doing then? Will you scale up? No. One thing that I learned last year is the number one reason products and services and startups fail is because they scale up too fast, too soon. One reason, for example, is that if you did things well, you faked everything in the back end because you were doing minimal viable products. That you showed stuff to the client, but in the back end everything is manual. Like our content management system is called Paula and Jada. They put everything in the database. This is not important for our clients. Right? But we will have to fix that before we scale up. Another issue is that probably you have attracted the innovators and the early adopters with your very simple prototypish product. And they are very forgiving with bugs and issues. They just want the new stuff. But when you start scaling up, you have passed the innovators and early adopters. You're going to reach out to the early majority. They have very different expectations from your product. They want things to work. They're going to throw it away at the first bug that they notice, for example. So I call it stabilization the late child phase, where you have to make sure that things work well. You validated everything product-oriented. Probably you also want to validate some other aspects of the business model that you didn't have time for yet. Like, who are the best key partners to work with? What are the best channels to offer your product? You see that on the business model canvas. Some of these, they're only like key partners or key resources. That's interesting when you start scaling up. It's not interesting when you're just a startup of a few people. That's a small product team. So you figured out the last parts of the model. And what you can start doing now is analyzing more accurately what is happening with the product. How are people using it? What is the interaction? Where do they come on board and where do they leave? Because now you get more people, so you can do more accurate data analysis. So for that there is a practice called the journey map. Journey mapping or customer experience mapping or service design, where you basically draw a picture of the experience that people have while they encounter and use your product or service. And then there are probably all kinds of touch points with your company or your product or service. That could be on the social networks, it could be on Facebook page, it could be a chat bot or whatever. To give you an example, when I go for a coffee in a strange city, what I do is I get Google Maps. I open Google Maps, I type coffee, I sort by open now, distance, top rated, and then I take the best rated coffee bar that is not more than a 30-minute walk when it is nice weather, because I like having a walk in a strange city. And then I go to a coffee bar, and then I arrive there and no coffee bar. Someone didn't take care of the Google Maps information. Okay, give me the next one. Less than 15 minutes, please, because now I need my coffee. And then we accelerate. We figured out how to make the product work. We have started optimizing the process. Now we just want 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times more customers and users. So, what time is 20? Okay, I'm doing well. So, by the way, this is my mother. the pictures that I showed you. My mother is so proud that she's in my presentation. She went through her photo album the entire weekend and I told her, I need pictures of you from 9 different life stages. Oh my God, what for? So anyway, she was a teenager here, stage 6. As you can see, she discovered new opportunities that she never knew about when she was a younger kid. New things become possible as a product or service in the teenage years. For example, this is where growth hacking typically starts. This is where you optimize the hell out of every step in the customer journey. I made the mistake of sending my team members to a growth hacking course last year. That made no sense, because we were in stage 4, product market fit. It was no time yet to start growth hacking, but naive as I was, I had no idea that it was 2 stages too early. So we could not apply anything from what we learned. Everyone just like, growth hacking, biggest thing ever, send everyone to your growth hacking course. Well, great, if you're in this stage. And what growth hackers usually do is, they optimize this funnel from a business perspective. The R metrics, they call them. Customers become aware of your product. There's acquisition of their customer details. You know who they are. Then you activate them. They actually start using your product or service. You want to keep them for as long as possible. Retention. Hopefully they refer their friends and family with coupons or whatever, likes, shares. And at some point there will be revenue, I'm sure. This is the pilot funnel, very well known picture in the startup circles. And I'll give you a concrete example of how you can optimize things. This is the idea for my new book. My publisher has it now, they're designing it, I finished writing. I will get it back next week to check if they put the illustrations in the right pages. And when my publisher asked for a new book, I said, I want to write about startups. Okay, that's interesting. And I said, I want to call it Startup, Scale Up, Screw Up. And it was a little bit silent over there in New York. I said, yeah, interesting, but it ends with a bad word. Okay. Can we change it to Startup, Screw Up, Scale Up? I said, that makes no sense at all. You're born and you grow up, you die. What's the problem? The concept is the life cycle. Yeah, but our marketing department believes that this is going to hurt sales with a bad word at the end. I said, in God we believe, everyone else bring evidence. Well, they had no evidence, but yeah, that's our intuition. Look, bullshit. So I said, okay, I will run a test. I have a mailing list, 10,000 people on there, I can run a test. So I sent people a book cover like this one, with Startup, Scale Up, Screw Up. And I asked people, how much do you like the cover? What is the rating? What is the conversion rate? They actually measured how many people clicked through the website. What they didn't know that only half of the people got this cover. The other half got that cover. With 2 words switched. And then I checked the conversion rates. And it turned out that indeed the publisher had a point. The conversion rate of this book was better. But only in North America. Interesting. The Americans do not want to end screwing up. The Europeans and the rest of the world didn't care. Hey dude, that's life. It's part of doing business. You will screw up at some point. So I told the publisher I win.
In the end you get 100%.
Sorry, in the end you get 100%. So but I said we want to optimize sales globally, not just in North America. So I won that fight. But one thing was the same across all the world. Everyone complained about the color pink. I kid you not. And women as much as men said, hey, is this going to be a ladies' book? A ladies' book? I like pink. What's the problem? Well, okay, so the book is going to look like this. I kept the color pink around my name, very subtle. But I did not look forward to decades of discussions about the latest book that I published in 2019. Anyways, so this is called an A/B test, right? Is you test two versions of your product, different colors, different text, different whatever, and this is typically what growth hackers do. Okay, 5 more minutes I see on my clock. Crystallization. Now, if everything goes well, hopefully someday you will get to that. You have a business that is scaled up, it works well, the exponential growth has tapered off, and maybe it's now linear, or it's even less than linear. And then expansion is the next stage, where you have stable, but maybe you expand to other areas, other product types. I took a picture of toothpaste in the supermarket, like 12 different versions of Sensodyne that are all basically the same thing. That's typically stage 8. You have something working and you just optimize the hell out of it. Right? When you see something appear in 12 colors, you know they ran out of ideas, basically. You know the end is in sight. This is stage 8. Stage 9 is, okay, it is starting to collapse, where we still have users, we don't want to lose them, so keep it running, but it's just costing us money now, basically, all the servers infrastructure. Actually, we should get them onboarded on the new product as soon as possible, because this is where my mother is. We're conserving her. We're conserving my mother at this point, keeping her around for as long as possible. Too early for euthanasia. And then I have no picture yet for 10, thank God. She couldn't find it. This finish, I hope this is going to last for a long time before we get there. The iPod went through this whole curve. Is there anyone still has an iPod in this room? 1, 2, oh, just a few people. Oh, hold on, it will be worth a lot of money very soon. So yeah, so you can see the sales of the iPod and the percentage of revenue. This is interesting. At the top, that was in 2006, Apple's iPod was 40% of Apple's revenue, and then it started declining. Now, maybe you saw it on the news, Apple has an issue because the iPhone is in stage 8, right? And they're trying to offer more features and more types, but people are not interested anymore. It soon is going to slide into stage 9. The problem is the iPhone is 75% of Apple's income. That is an issue, and that is what worries the shareholders. So this is the business life cycle, 10 stages that many products and services go through. Anyone familiar with this series? I'm sure some of you are. Who do you think is going to be on the Iron Throne at the end of the 8th season? Is it Cersei? Oh, may she reign. I don't think it's Cersei, but who? There are not many left. There are not many left in the game. And that is how I see the innovation pipeline. It's not a pipeline, it's like a game. All the products and services should get started. It's like here, we all get started. Right? That is the arena, basically, of new ideas should give everyone a chance. And then see who gets to the next stage, who gets to season 2, who gets to season 3. More and more will drop off along the way in the business life cycle. It's like a mountain that you're trying to climb, and it gets progressively more difficult climbing up that mountain with your products and services.
It sounded like 2 3-year-olds who've got flu trying to sing.
I love him. I mean, his insults are better than anything I can come up with. But for me, this is what an innovation steering committee should be. It's like a jury. Like, all the ideas can start. They can all do audition. And then they say, that was an amazing performance. That sucked. You can try again next month or next year. And some go to the next stage, and then maybe they get a little bit more funding. They call that metered funding in startup terms. There's a picture of my little brother. Well, actually, it's Bart Simpson, of course. But this felt like my family where I grew up. Yeah. He was a little rascal, my little brother. I have that picture because for me the firm is like a family. It's a family of products and services. So some are a little bit wacky, but they're all part of the family, and they're trying to grow up along the way. But different rules apply to different stages in the life cycle depending on where people are. My brother thought it was so unfair that I was allowed to come home anytime I wanted, but he had to come home at 8. But Jurgen can come home at 8. Yes, my mother said, but he's 3 years older. And if you can make sure that for at least 1 year I don't have to pick you up from the police station, then you have earned the right to come home anytime you want. Well, that was really difficult for my little brother. Anyways, this is our family. Look how cute the pants are that I had here. They're all the rage nowadays. I started the trend, I think, back then. But this is what the life cycle looks like, and this is basically how you solve the innovator's dilemma. Because you have lots of products and services starting over here, and they're exploring. This is all disruptive innovation, what they're doing, and one by one they will fall off the side. But a few will remain. They will get bigger, and then slowly but steadily they will switch to execution, sustaining innovation. That's where the iPhone is now. And Apple is desperately trying to have enough new ideas so that the iPod that switched to the iPhone, you have to have the same switch, and the iPhone is switched into something new, another product that's going to make up the bulk of their revenue. And here, the adults, they pay for everything basically. Like in any family, the adults, they pay for all the kids, and they pay for the elderly that are still hanging around, that haven't died yet. That is how a business works. So, conclusion, and then it's up to you. The only way not to be disrupted by anyone else is to disrupt yourself with an innovation funnel. Now go forth and make lots of babies. Thank you so much.